conversation in the 21st National Conference of Australians for Constitutional Monarchy. And the subject, the theme of the keynote conversation, is a tale of two great Commonwealths, Australia and the United States of America. And this is being divided into segments for the purposes of the recordings for our channel. The first segment is an Australian American Churchillian defends our Constitution. As I said, this is the 21st conference, the only organization in the debate between the monarchy and the republic which has such a record, and it demonstrates, I think, what former Prime Minister Bob Hawke lamented during the referendum campaign: the monarchists are winning the intellectual argument. This subject, A Tale of Two Great Commonwealths, features a conversation comparing the Australian and American constitutional systems. There could be few more qualified to discuss this than our John David Olsen, born in America and resident in Australia, formerly with Microsoft and Disney, both in the United States and in Paris. John is now a resident in Australia and a citizen of Australia. And I'll begin with a question to him, a general question. John, you're a strong supporter of what the preamble of our Constitution Act describes as an indissoluble federal commonwealth under the Crown and under the Constitution. John, why do you support this?
Thank you for having me, first of all. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for leaving about 5 minutes for us to cover all of this after your real glowing introduction. There's three principal reasons why I support constitutional monarchy, and of course that's outlined, which is outlined in the preamble to the Constitution. First is economic. The other next is political. This third is historical. I think from a purely business standpoint, very practical standpoint, economically, it's a very good system, and it's worked very well for us. We have, close ties to the UK, of course, which is our fifth largest trading partner. 31 billion in mutual trade between us. So it's a system that is working very well. And in my mind, why would you want to upset them from an economic point of view? There's, for example, there is an organization called Transparency International, and they do a survey every year of countries and their stability and how much corruption there is. And the top 10 best countries with the least amount of corruption, 7 of the 10 of those are constitutional monarchies, including Sweden, Norway, and the Netherlands, and so on. So I think it's a very practical system, first of all. Second, I think politically, as you point out very frequently in your conversations, is that if we were to have an elected governor general or an elected president, that person is going to be, depending on what model was chosen, that person is probably not going to have those reserved powers, potentially. And what that does, of course, is gives us that separation of powers and that balance of powers. So I think from a political standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, much more than an elected president, where, for example, look at the latest election in America. Yeah. If you look at the latest election in America, you've got somebody running who wants to undo everything of the last 4 years. And you had, prior to that, you had Barack Obama, who was in it for 8 years, wanting to undo everything that George Bush did. So you've got this lurching from left to right, which doesn't offer a lot of stability in terms of a political system. When a government gets in and then tries to undo everything that's been done in the last 4 years. So I think from a political perspective, ours is a much better balanced system. And then, of course, from a historical perspective, our cultural ties, our common English language, and the fact that our laws are based on English common law, and our history and traditions and language and all that is common. And so for all of those three reasons, and I could elaborate on all of those three, that's why I support a constitutional monarchy over the representative republic that is America.
Well, you're a great admirer of Winston Churchill, as with many Americans, and you play a significant role in the International Churchill Association, which has these splendid conferences with all sorts of famous people alternating between the United States and America. I hope one day I may be able to visit one of them. I explained to you when you're going to Australia that Australians don't necessarily have the same high regard of Winston Churchill. I think, perhaps unfairly, but that's not the time to debate that. But what is the reason for your admiration of Churchill? Why do you play such a significant role in an organisation which honours his memory?
Well, it's grown over time, of course, but initially, and I get asked all the time, why are you so interested in a dead white imperialist? And the fact is, the more you get to know him, he's a really fascinating character. And he was a character who painted 535 canvases in his lifetime. He used painting as a way to get through his depression after the Dardanelles. He was in Parliament for 60 years. He was a great speaker. He was a great writer. He wrote, millions of words, something on the order of 5 million words between his books and his speeches. And he was incredibly prolific. And I think that the more I get to know about him, and the more I read about him, and there's more than 11, I think if you read Andrew Roberts' biography recently, and Andrew Roberts, I think, said there is 1,001 biographies of Winston Churchill. But they all have a little different perspective and a slightly different take. And the reason Andrew said that his was, that he'd written his, is because he had access to archives that weren't previously available, including the diaries of George VI. So anyway, I could speak about him all afternoon as well, but he's an endlessly fascinating character. And I think the more I got to know him and his family members, not him personally, but him through readings, the more interested I became. And so I got more and more involved and still am.